Isn't this a pretty stone? I don't know what it is. Maybe you guys can tell me. But I love the flat circular shape. It's kind of like a flying saucer. In any case, it's a nice marble of gray, off-white, and pink, and that'll go great with silver. I made a piece like this similar on the live show. So 20 gauge, we're gonna go with about, probably not gonna need this much, just to be on the safe side. We're gonna go with about 2 feet. Probably only need slightly more than a foot, but this is one of the simplest designs I've ever done. And I can do it over and over and over again. Nobody ever gets tired of it. Even people who've watched 100 videos, they see this design and they're like, whoa. And I'm like, really? But it works. It's like the culmination of all the simple designs I've ever made, where you can combine elegance with a lot of simplicity. So you guys steal it, make it your own, make 100 pieces with this design, go out, get rich, make me happy. I really will be cheering for you. So you get your stone to the middle of your wire, and it works with stones drilled straight through top to bottom, I should mention, which are really easy to find if you look. So don't fret. Give it a bend and a bend, opposite directions. Decide where the top of your stone is. You can use your round nose pliers or a pen or something. I just use my finger, because if you let the wire just bend around itself, and if you grab it from far back and just let it bend, you can get a really nice round teardrop shape. And then you can also roll it into the size you want. Once you get it to the size you want, now it's going to shrink a little bit when you twist it, so keep that in mind. And you want to have room to scarf it, which you'll see. You want to hold everything tight in place and give this loop a little half turn like that. Pinch it tight, make sure nothing moved. If anything did, just push back, and then fold the top down over and the bottom fold up, and then pick a spot in the bottom, maybe in the corner where you want to have your first spiral, and wherever you cross the wires, that's where it will end up. So, and then you start to have the wires chase each other, and they just come around one at a time, this one, then this one. And if you keep it open, you can have a nice open spiral where you can see the stone coming around in between the wires, or you can make it really tight spiral, whatever you prefer. If you pull it tighter, of course it'll be tighter. You can go around as many times as you want. I don't know how many times do I usually go around. I think I do a semi-open spiral. It's a little bit tight. I go around about 2 times with each strand, but it really varies. Sometimes I'll make a smaller, larger, there's a lot of variation. So, and then I'll take my thumb and press it real tight and roll it just a little bit more to get it right where I want it. And then I let these 2 strands separate and kind of arc out in a nice curve like this, going across about halfway across the stone, and then I fold it over. I used to just go straight across the back, but now I find if you cross these and give it a double twist, it holds it better in place, and it makes a little anchor for you to grab later, you'll see. We're gonna fold it back up this side, and these strands are kind of like ice skaters. Sometimes this is the rink, the ice is the stone, and then these 2 strands, sometimes they skate together, sometimes they separate, sometimes they do loop-de-loops together. So they're kind of separate here, and then they're gonna come together. I'm making 2 arcs like this. So they're going to kind of come together right here and make a nice loop. I'm pressing with my thumb to hold them in place as they come around, make that nice loop, and they get closer and closer to each other as they finish the loop. Now sometimes I'll want them to be still separate more, so I'll pull the inner one to make it tighter and let the outer one still be looser. Once I get them just the way I want, then I hold it tight, holding everything tight, pressing that loop down with my thumb. I'm going to overshoot it this way, because then I want it to come back this way, and I'm going to do one more loop, this time a really tight loop, with both strands pressed side by side. And I'm going to roll it, pressing tight against the stone still. And there's my last little loop. And now where do I place everything? I want these a little bit lower down here. I want this loop a little bit further away from that loop, so I'm going to pull it even tighter. And then I want to come to the top, and I'm going to pretend this is a face and give it a scarf. So I'm going to wrap around, keeping the strands side by side. They always want to roll over each other, but you got to untangle them, keep them side by side, and then just naturally let the wraps stack and go up as high as you want. I go up about halfway up the face. You don't want to go up too high so the person can't breathe. And then when you're done, usually in the back, bend it a little bit up, kind of on a diagonal, and then halfway across the loop, maybe a little bit further back, I cut it. Make sure you don't cut anything more than what you want to cut. And then these two sharp ends, I bend them push them towards that little bowl I made with the scarf, and then I turn and push them down into the bowl, deep down in, so the sharp ends are hidden forever. Go and check the front, move anything the way I want it to be, readjust, make sure all these guys are good. And then actually, before I cut the two ends off, sometimes I'll take one of the strands and come down and loop under there and then come back up and finish the scarf. And that holds this in place better, keep it from getting snagged. It's pretty tight, but just to be on the safe side, I'm gonna get some thin wire, and you can also finish it with thin wire and do this real quick. If you don't have thin wire, you can just take another piece of wire, literally, and just sneak it under here. And then bend it, and then take the two strands like this and wrap them around the scarf again. And then cut them and tuck them in just as you did the first set of sharp ends. But because I do have thin wire, I'm going to do this with the thin wire. So same thing you just saw, but the thin wire kind of blends in a little better, and it's just as strong. This is 24 gauge. Let's take a little piece. It slides under more easily too, and it makes less bulk in the back. So if you have it, use it. I'm going to get it right here in that little crevice, and then pull these two ends tight, give them a couple twists, and then bring them up together straight up to hold that in place, pulling it tight, and then just let it blend into the scarf as you wrap it up. You don't have to wrap it across the whole thing, just kind of diagonal your way up until you get to the top. I think I went around about twice, and then do the same thing. Cut it, tuck your sharp ends into that little bowl, make sure they're deep, never to come out, and now your piece is really secure. If you didn't make this part tight enough, if it's kind of more of a curve, then you can always give it a little crimp or two, make it extra tight. Press it straight down and just twist. Kind of gives it a cool little diagonal look too. You can always crimp any wire that's loose like that and give it a nice lightning bolt look. Sometimes you can do it on the front. It'll add to the piece if you don't want straight lines and curves, if you want it to be more like zigzaggy. So this piece is pretty much finished. I'm going to lastly move everything a little bit more where I want it to be. Just with my fingernails, just kind of move it around. But it's pretty much, you can use the side of the pliers to press anything that's sticking up so I don't scratch. And I'm pretty happy with that. 3 jump rings and a pretty chain, and that pretty much finishes this off for me. Again, feel free to copy this pattern as many times as you like. I've rarely found anyone who doesn't like it. Or even more fun, take what you've learned from these different swirls and loops and stuff and make your own pattern and do something totally random and different. Maybe if you have a wider stone with more surface to cover, you can do even more loops and spirals and come around the back and just play around and have a lot of fun. See you guys.